Okay, this is Christian Polson. Clark Wellman's Winter Quarter Computer Science 110 class. This is the Turtle Final Project. It is four separate, well, actually, it's really three patterns, six varying colors, six boxes. So the code starts this way. I imported Turtle, and I set the pin size and the speed, and then I set the initial position to 0, 12, just so the whole skeleton here is going to fit inside of the screen. So obviously I started by defining the squares in the skeleton. And then here we set the skeleton background color to white. The pin color is black, and then we draw our squares. So I chose pattern M, and so I have a ton of helper functions to start, including all the different times I needed to reposition Turtle to draw various lines and stuff throughout this thing. And then we have the squares encapsulated here, and then we have horizontal and vertical lines drawn throughout, little boxes and mid-sized rectangles in the middle that I had to fill with color. There's a larger center box that I had to fill as well. And as you can see, I've got a bunch of different variables set for the colors, and tried to keep the variables pretty simple. So most of these just have Alex, width, and maybe a color. And then, obviously running through here, you've got all the different maneuvering, going through the project. And yeah, and so here's the final call that puts it all together in the order that we want. So pattern M with the variables Alex, width, color M1, and color M2 for pattern M. So for I in range 4. For square in range 3, we're going to draw 3 squares across. Actually, it's 4, but this operated in chunks of 3. And then I've got all my various repositions, horizontal lines, repositions again, vertical lines, little box, mid-rect 2, big box, reposition, and then a new row, and it does that a bunch of times. And then for pattern H here, a lot of the same stuff, a little bit cleaner here. I'm probably going to go back up before I turn this in and space out the code for pattern M like this. But yeah, so here is all my helper functions, coloring things in, drawing various boxes and rectangles. I didn't rename these square or box. I just didn't want a bunch of crossover. I had a ton of issues with new row and stuff, it calling the wrong new row. So I need to make sure that I'm very, very clearly defining the different functions within the helper functions. All right, so yeah, here's the call for that. There's obviously this range statement for all the squares that go on inside there, and then all the different boxes and things. And then for my choice of pattern, I picked stars. So I did a square of stars. Set the width and the color, making sure to differentiate how I call that color in this, because I kept ending up cross-calling all these different functions. So that was problematic. Yeah, so here we go. Just all these different various functions. And then what I did was I wrote a function called callAll, which is pretty obvious what that does, but it calls all of the functions under one function, So you see all of the various variables here, including Alex. This is the width for skeleton. This is width for box. This is length of star, I want to say, and that's the angle of the star. And then it calls the skeleton, and then it repositions, and calls pattern M. And I wrote this so that you should be able to do this in whatever order you want. If you wanted to change the order, you can just come in here and change the pattern to H or pattern star. You can come in here and very easily change all the colors so that you can flip this around, and it's very mobile. It's not like if you change something in this, the whole thing falls apart. And then, yeah, so then that way you should really only have to call a few things here. Alex, and then, the various widths and lengths. Some of these are kind of wonky, like 17.9, and there's some stuff in here too, and that's just to make sure that everything fits super snug. Yeah, so I guess I'm going to run that program. It's going to take a while, so enjoy, and here we go. So starting with pattern M, and there's the inside boxes. I'm recording a video. Could you guys be quiet? Thanks. Sorry about the description. Yeah, so it's just going to go on and on and on like that. This took several tries getting this to fit inside the box exactly. This was the second code that I wrote, actually. The next code was the first one I wrote. I actually had to rework that whole thing. It was a total disaster, and when I tried to move it to this, put this all together, this particular box just started putting stuff everywhere, all over, all sorts of crazy stuff. So I had to go in and really do a good job of encapsulating all this this program so that you can do it this way, so that if I want, I can go back into that final call program and just change this to this and this to that, and on and on and on, which was not the case when I first started trying this. So I'm pretty stoked about that. I'm also pretty stoked about my colors. These are pleasant color pattern, or palette, I should say. Here is the original pattern. What is this? M, I think? Or, yeah, I believe this is M. Reversed. So. I think that when I rewrote this pattern H, I want to say, I made the wise choice to color this box initially. So this is super slow because it comes in and colors 3 individual boxes, which I think in retrospect I probably would have done a lot different. Yeah, so it kind of slows it down. And here is the last box of the assigned patterns. And after this, we'll go do the 2 wings, which are my choice. I'm happy with this section of the code though. This patterns code seems to be a little bit more efficient than the other one. Does all the lines at the same time across. I'm happy with that. The other one's kind of dumb. I don't like how I did that. Here comes my stuff. Probably could have been a little more intricate, but this was hard enough. And then the reversal on the other side. And voila, it is finished. There's the final project.